Arsenal just ended their 4-game winless streak thanks to an injury-time screamer from Jorginho. But even though the Gunners are back in first place, Arteta's team looks as vulnerable as ever. They lost to relegation candidate Everton, drew to Premier League sophomores Brentford, and collapsed against Man City all in the span of 10 days. So what's going on? What's causing the dip in form? We found the answers once we took a closer look at the tactics board. So everyone take notes as we break down why Arsenal suddenly looks so vulnerable. Welcome back, guys. You're watching the Sideline Starters and my name is Andy, first team all sideline. Drop a like to help us keep growing, and without further ado, let's get started. On paper, it looked like Arsenal's February 4th matchup with Everton was a complete mismatch. The Toffees were sitting in 19th place and had just sacked Frank Lampard, so it should have been a walk in the park. Until you remember that the man they hired to replace Frank Lampard was seasoned Premier League tactician Sean Dyche. The Premier League's favorite ginger made a name for himself during his time at Burnley, but has also been wrongly typecast as a one-trick pony, married to the old-school 4-4-2, and ultimately out of new ideas. While Arsenal and Mikel Arteta are perceived as the opposite, with the side praised for their modern football. While Arsenal line up in a 4-3-3 deeper in defense, their truer shape while attacking resembles a 3-2-5. Arteta deploys Zinchenko as an inverted fullback just like Guardiola did at Man City, allowing him to join Thomas Partey as part of a defensively solid but creative midfield too, while Ben White overlaps on the right side while also being given the freedom to tuck in when necessary. This allows Granit Xhaka to serve as the box-to-box midfielder, capable of breaking up play while also pushing up higher like we saw in the North London derby. While Martin Odegaard behaves like a number 10, unlocking defenses with his incredible passing and flawless technique on the ball. Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli can decide to either stay wide or cut inside, as they're both excellent in one-on-one situations and are more than capable goal scorers. While Gabriel Jesus and now Eddie Nketiah lead the line as the first line of press, looking to receive the ball in dangerous areas. Which brings us to their game against Everton. Sean Dyche did his homework on Arteta's side and ditched his 4-4-2 for something much more methodical. Dyche organized Everton in a 4-5-1, specifically designed to stop Arsenal's dangerous build-up play. The quick and physical Calvert-Lewin was asked to drop deeper than usual to press one of Arsenal's midfield too. And this is where the domino effect began. Whoever Calvert-Lewin left unmarked became the responsibility of the center midfielders. Let's use Decore in this example. The Frenchman pushed up and pressured Zinchenko as he received the ball, while simultaneously blocking Granit Xhaka's passing lane. If Zinchenko found a way over the pressure, Everton's wide and other central midfielder created a 2v1 situation to neutralize the threat. And whenever Zinchenko chose not to play over the press and passed back to his defense instead, Calvert-Lewin shifted accordingly, leaving centre mid Onana to pressure Partey instead. In doing so, Onana accomplished the same thing Decore did on the other side, pressuring one of Arsenal's midfield too, while covering the passing lane of the attacking midfielder behind him, in this case Martin Odegaard. When Arsenal inevitably looked for solutions out wide, fullbacks Mykolenko and Coleman pushed up with the help of mids Iwobi and McNeil, creating more 2v1 scenarios. While Tarkowski scored off a set piece to give Everton the 1-goal lead they would hold on to for the rest of the game. Arsenal might have had 70% of the ball, but that was all by design. With all that possession, they only mustered 3 shots on Everton's goal, compared to the Toffees' 4. Arteta was outcoached by Sean Dyche in his first game back in the Premier League, and would face an even tougher task next. The only thing more painful than losing to a Sean Dyche masterclass is facing a Thomas Frank team immediately after. The Danish sensation is easily the most overachieving manager in the Premier League, as he led Brentford to a 13th place finish in 2021, their first season back in the Premier League since 1947. Brentford have only gotten better since then and were sitting in 7th place heading into their February 11th clash with the Gunners. Thomas Frank sets his team up in a very compact 5-3-2, with 3 center backs and 3 midfielders forming 2 solid blocks of defensive cover, designed to completely clog the midfield and prevent opposition build-up play, forcing talented opponents to go wide. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Once their opponents are pushed out wide, wingbacks Rico Henry and Mats Roerslev begin to press alongside their central midfielder, creating 2v1 situations. Once Brentford's fullbacks win the ball, they immediately sprint up the wing and support strikers Brian Mbeumo and Ivan Toney. And we saw these principles come into play against Arsenal. Here, Brentford's 5 defenders are seen in complete unison, while the midfield 3 hover directly in front of them. And thanks to this footage from Metrica Sports, we can also see the 2v1s working on Gabriel Martinelli, leaving him isolated on the left. But to Arsenal's credit, they addressed the 2v1s by having Ben White overlap, which led to Arsenal's lone goal of the night through a Leandro Trossard tap-in. Arsenal's resilience in the face of Thomas Frank's tactics would unfortunately be overshadowed 10 minutes later, as Ivan Toney scored off a pass he received from an offside Christian Norgard. VAR was completely useless as the goal was awarded anyway, ending the game in a 1-1 draw, a result Mikel Arteta deemed unacceptable.
And that cost Arsenal 2 points, and that's not going to be restored. So we're going to have to find those 2 points somewhere else in the league.
The fallout was massive as matchday 22 was deemed the worst weekend in VAR history. League-wide controversy started to pile up, with the Arsenal and Brentford game yielding professional consequences.
Brentford's equaliser on Saturday was allowed to stand, but it later emerged that the VAR, Lee Mason, had failed to spot an offside. Mason has now been stood down from this weekend's games.
Which brings us to the next hurdle they would face. It was time for the student to face the master, as Arteta's Arsenal would play Pep's second-place City on February 15th. And as we all know by now, Arsenal were beaten 3-1. But this wasn't like Brentford or Everton. Arsenal weren't screwed by the refs and weren't beaten by some tactical masterclass. In fact, Pep got it completely wrong in the first half. Guardiola lined City up in a 3-2-2-3 formation in possession, looking to create a box in midfield between De Bruyne, Gundogan, Rodri and Silva, while Grealish and Mahrez were deployed in wide positions, as Haaland looked to run in behind and receive the ball with his back to goal as well. Where things got out of hand was when Man City were out of possession, and it all centered around the positioning of Bernardo Silva. Whenever Man City lost the ball, the Portuguese winger and false 9 was deployed as a left back, effectively changing City's shape to a 4-3-2-1. And this might have worked, except that Silva was one-on-one with Bukayo Saka, arguably the most dangerous right winger in the entire league. In attack, Arsenal lined up in the 3-2-5 we've gotten used to seeing, with 2 exceptions. Jorginho replaced an injured Thomas Partey, while Tomiyasu was chosen ahead of Ben White. Arteta's boys targeted Silva, sending 43% of their attacks towards City's left side. And it was working, until Tomiyasu's brain suddenly melted in the 23rd minute and passed the ball right in the path of Kevin De Bruyne to make it 1-0. Saka would tie the game in the 40th minute, but it wasn't enough. Guardiola made the necessary changes in the second half, bringing on Akanji at center back and pushing Ake to left back, while Bernardo Silva was deployed in his preferred position on the right at the expense of Riyad Mahrez. And while the changes helped City's defensive shape, Arsenal shot themselves in the leg again, as Gabriel inexplicably gave the ball away to Silva in the middle of the pitch, who hit Haaland in space, who then laid it off for Grealish's calm finish. And from then on, Arsenal were in shambles. They left the Premier League's top goal scorer completely unmarked in the box, as Haaland punished Arsenal in the 81st minute, ending the game 3-1, which was Arsenal's 3rd league game in a row without a victory, claiming only 1 point out of a possible 9. So let's recap. Arsenal were outcoached by Sean Dyche's 4-5-1 masterclass, frustrated by Thomas Frank's Brentford and ultimately robbed by VAR, and committed unforgivable errors against Man City. Arsenal keep dropping points because teams are forcing them to break through 2v1 situations, while Man City exposed mental weaknesses in a young team that's never won the league before. In Arsenal's defense, their win against Aston Villa required a fighting spirit worthy of champions, and they could use that game as a springboard to get things back on track. And for their sake, I hope they do, or else Mikel Arteta's men will forever be remembered for bottling the Premier League. And that's all I got for today, guys. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, and smash that like button. And if you want to see a team that's only dropped points 3 times all year, click right here. They got a 15-point lead in the Serie A, guys. It's crazy. Till next time, everyone.